I'm going to talk about one of the affirmations of a insight that I had on my own. Those are always really nice, you know, when you're doing something right, but you're not sure it's right, and you kind of think you discovered it on your own or it's something new, and it turns out that you find out from a better authority that you got something right. When I first started meditating, really sincerely, was in Hawaii when I quit surfing to meditate. I saw surfing as a distraction, so I sold my board in Waikiki. I was living on the North Shore, Sunset Beach. Actually, I was living between Sunset and Wèishéme Bay on Keiki Road. So I started meditating in the jungles of Hawaii and on the pristine beaches where no one was going. And I would hitchhike around different places, and I lived outside and meditated all day. I had nothing but silence and beautiful, beautiful environment. At some point, after about 2 years, I had to go because I knew that I needed a teacher, so I left and went to India and Nepal, where I stayed for 2 years. I had no money for that 2 years that I was wandering the beaches and the jungles, so I worked on a construction job for 6 months, building the first hotel on the big island of Hawaii. And I rightly calculated that 2,000 or 3,000 what I earned, actually it was 2,000, would last me for 2 years, and it did. When I got to India and Nepal, I spent 1 year up in the mountains in the Himalaya, halfway up the Everest trek. And there I was given I stayed in a monastery where I was given the cabin that the abbot's mother had died in. There I also meditated all day. Complete silence, beautiful environment. Next stop was a cave in South India, and that's what brought me to, after 6 months in that cave, which was probably the most incredible 6 months of my life. I was in a sandstone desert in a unbelievably beautiful place where you could, as far as the eye could see, was nothing but sandstone desert. And there was a village below the cave, which probably had 2,000 or 3,000 people, and it was nothing for maybe 500 miles all around. It was in the middle of the desert, in a place called Puttaparthi. Below was the ashram of Satya Sai Baba. But this discussion is about my discovery, so I got to get to it. So these 2 years, 2 years in Hawaii, 2 years in India and Nepal, I had unbelievably incredible support from the environment. But I hadn't accomplished my aim, which I knew I needed a teacher. And that's not to say I didn't meet incredible teachers. I did meet incredible teachers, but I didn't meet my teacher. You know, I didn't feel that I met my teacher. So then I went to from the South Indian cave, I returned to America. Shortly after returning, I was in the middle of the city, San Francisco. I went to the San Francisco Zen Center, and I started meditating there with all the Zen students. And I was meditating there all day, but the students meditated about 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening. There the environment was very different in the Zen Center. I mean, it was fairly quiet, but you know, there was traffic noise and all of that. But strangely, I didn't have any misgivings about the environment. It was fairly quiet in the Zen Center. They were on a residential street, but I just didn't feel the practice of my fellow Dharma practitioners was strong enough to keep me there. And I asked the secretary of the San Francisco Zen Center if there was a place where the practice was a little bit more serious. And she said, well, there was a place called Gold Mountain, which no one could stay there, quote, because it's too strict. An hour later, I was there, and I stayed for 3.5 years in Gold Mountain, and then moved up to the new main monastery, City of 10,000 Buddhas, where I stayed for 7 years. So in Gold Mountain was in the Mission District, a very rough area of San Francisco. Across from our place was an apartment complex called the Projects, which was so rough when there was anything going on in the projects, the police would not go into the projects. They would stay on the street and monitor, but they would not go in. That's how dangerous it was. Gold Mountain was fairly quiet, and we all meditated in the Chan Hall, and we really treasured the silence that we had. The only business around us for probably a mile or so was a liquor store. Next door to Gold Mountain was a Smithy's mechanic shop owned by a black person who I used to talk to once in a while. And that was it. So it was fairly quiet in Gold Mountain also. And everybody treasured that quiet in the Buddha Hall. And I suppose I did too, but I never thought about it much. So there I meditated all day, every day too, and the people all living in my fellow monks and nuns, they usually meditated in the mornings and evenings a couple of hours, and in the afternoons I'd be pretty much on my own in the Buddha Hall. And this went on all the time, except for when we had Chan sessions, we had extensive Chan sessions in that time. It was like no nonsense, not like what's going on now. We had it from 2:30 in the morning until midnight. And you had to be really on your toes because people monitored you and made sure that everybody was awake, except for the first 2 hours in the morning where you were kind of allowed to doze informally, if that's what happened. It was called the ice box because it was so cold. But we had a wall separating the front office from the Buddha hall. And that front office was where the monastery business was carried out. Phones rang. People came in to visit. People discussed various things and so forth. It was a typical office where you had things going on. And then the Buddha hall was, you walked out of the office, you were in the Buddha hall. And people really liked to meditate in the Buddha hall because it was so quiet and nice. But for me, quite obvious reason, the master decided to break down the wall from the front office to the Buddha hall and make a half wall so that all the noise of the front office carried on into the Buddha hall. So all of a sudden people were grumbling that you could hear everything in the Buddha hall. Well, obviously that was the whole point. And that's the whole point of this little video, is that the noise that we hear when we meditate, we wouldn't be hearing if we were absorbed, engaged in our meditation. And if we crave silence, if we're attached to silence, and the noise will go on in our head and we won't even notice it. But if there's exterior silence, then we really notice everything that's, we blame all of our internal noise on external noise. If there's no noise at all, like I was meditating in caves and so forth and up in the mountains and on pristine beaches and in jungles, then the noise in our head, we won't notice because it's kind of background noise. The external noise brings the background noise to the surface. And that's why it's good. And that's why the master broke down the wall, or half of it, to the front office. By the master, I mean Master Shuō, my ordination master and refuge master, and the teacher I knew I was connected with. So he broke down the front wall so that we wouldn't all be sitting there and just spinning our wheels thinking that we're really meditating when we're really not. So that's the whole point. And the point is that, we hear about meditation retreats and all of this and silent retreats here and there. It is very common in America, for these silent retreats. Various teachers are having them and so forth in exotic places. But people that really want to progress in the meditation should not seek any place that's that's silent or remote. The reason is that, as I said, that you can go to a silent retreat, or you can even have one wherever you are, whatever monastery you're affiliated with, or if you're a lay person, go to any silent retreat. But the fact of the matter is that you'll be meditating wherever you are. And for, like myself as a family person, after becoming a monk, I was a family person married for 17 years, I had kids running around, phones ringing, hearing people talk all the time around me, a lot of external noise. But I didn't notice it because I was trained very, very well. I knew how to absorb my mind in my own meditation and get deep into my meditation. And if I noticed the kids playing or fighting or something like that, I knew I wasn't meditating. So external noise is the barometer for internal noise. So people that seek silent retreats, that's okay, but we should understand that the reality is we're going to be meditating in the environment we're in. Now, some may say, well, why do people go to caves and so forth? And why do people go into these major retreats for 3.5 years and in a silent room? Is that no good? No, it is good. But people that do that know how to absorb their mind in their meditation. They know they can get engaged. So whether there's noise or no noise, they don't know the difference because it's all in their mind, and they know that. So if you have the skill where you can sit in samadhi and really absorb yourself in yourself, then yeah, you can go into a cave, or you might need a cave. If you absorb that much, why be around people? Why be around noise? But the reality is that most of us are not at that level yet. So a retreat that's silent or so is not necessary. We should be able to meditate anywhere, and we should understand that external noise, if we hear it, is only internal noise. We only hear it because we only hear it as a disturbance because it's the internal noise that's going on. If we were really absorbed in meditation, then we wouldn't hear it. We wouldn't hear that or notice it. So that's the thing we should look for. We should understand and not blame external noise on as disturbing our meditation. It doesn't. In reality, it's a gift. And many great teachers have known that. One of the ones that comes to mind is kind of a funny story. It's that story of a great saint in South India who died about 40 years ago, Nisargadatta. And he decided to go up into the Himalayas and meditate. And he stripped completely naked. And he started walking to the Himalayas. And he got about halfway there. And his occupation was rolling bīdis, which are cigarettes, Indian-style cigarettes rolled in a tobacco leaf. And he sold those on the street. And he started walking naked. And he got about halfway there, and he said, well, what's the point? I don't need a silent cave. I'm just so, my samadhi power is so strong that it's pointless to go anywhere. So he returned to his bīdi rolling in South India after going several months of walking to the Himalayas. He returned, put on his clothes, and started rolling bīdis again. And he lived in an upstairs apartment. And when he wasn't rolling bīdis and selling them on the street, he was sitting in samadhi. And after several years, people noticed there was something very special about him, and he became one of India's great modern saints. And several books have been written about Nisargadatta Maharaj. So that's, for those of us who have any, thoughts that are family, if we're family people, students, business people, housewives, fathers with kids running around, and we're craving the silence of a silent retreat, it's not necessary. The reason that my teacher broke the wall down in half of it at Gold Mountain was to say that much, to say that look for silence inside and don't worry about what's going on outside. And any noise that's going on outside can actually help you with the right attitude silence the noise inside. And that's where it's at.